There we are. Okay. Do I need to? I'll move back a little bit. See if that helps. All right. Okay. Try again. That test. How's that? That better? All right. Back to Numbers. Numbers chapter 10. We're about halfway through. Now, I have to ask a question for those who have been with us all along. How many of you remember the names of the leaders of each of the tribes? Good news, you're going to hear them again tonight if you don't. For like the third or fourth time in the book, we're going to hear it again. And I have to imagine that is part of why it was written so many times. And if you remember, though, we did talk a little bit about one of the reasons you see the repetition in these names is, remember, it is not likely that Moses just sat down and said, you know what, this week in my spare time, I'm going to write a book called Numbers. That Numbers is very much considered to be almost like a journal of what happened. As things happened, he wrote them down. And so that's why you see these lists repeated. So when we're talking about who gets set aside as the leaders of each of the tribes, and there you go, that they're listed. When it talks about how they're going to camp and march out, guess what? That's a separate thing altogether, probably recorded completely separately. So guess what? They're listed again. When it comes to the gifts that they all bring, that's a separate thing. So they're all listed again. And now they are about to leave the wilderness of Sinai to go to the promised land. So they all get listed again. And this one's not as long. It's a little shorter. So we're going to just go through that first. Now, just to remind you, this is not the going to the promised land when they're actually going to enter with Joshua. This is still only in the second month since leaving Egypt. So the Lord took them out, did all the signs and wonders in the crossing of the Red Sea. That's kind of stage one of the journey. That's the Exodus, okay? Then we have this time at Sinai and the mountain where God gives them the law, God organizes them, God turns them into the nation and organizes their movements, their armies, and all of that, and tells them how they're going to live, how they're going to function, how they're going to worship, how they're going to do that. So they have been in this training course, and now it's time for training to be over, and they're ready to move, and they're ready to go. In verse 11 of Numbers chapter 10, it says, "Now it came to pass on the 20th day of the second month, in the second year, that the cloud was taken up from the tabernacle of the testimony, and the children of Israel set out from the wilderness of Sinai on their journeys. And the cloud settled down in the wilderness of Paran, so they started out for the first time, according to the command of the Lord by the hand of Moses. The standard of the camp of the children of Judah set out first according to their armies. Over their army was Nahshon, the son of Amminadab. Over the army of the tribe of the children of Issachar was Nathaniel, the son of Zuar. Over the army of the tribe of Zebulun was Eliab, the son of Helon. And the tabernacle was taken down, and the sons of Gershon and the sons of Merari set out carrying the tabernacle. And the standard of the camp of Reuben set out according to their armies. Over their army was Eliezer, the son of Shadur. Over the army of the tribe of the children of Simeon was Shelemiel, the son of Zurishaddai. Over the army of the tribe of the children of Gad was Eliasaph, the son of Duel. Then the Kohathites set out carrying the holy things. The tabernacle would be prepared for their arrival. Now, just really quick, pause there. So again, you see this order. You had the first set of the three tribes. Remember, they were broken up into the four sides surrounding the tabernacle. First ones to go were Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. After those three went, the tabernacle was taken down, and that's all the housing part of it, okay? Not the holy stuff yet and the important stuff in it. All the outer stuff went next. Then you had the next set of tribes going, and that was going to be Reuben, Simeon, and Gad. After they went, So 2 tribes have gone, and all the things, the outer part of the temple, or the tabernacle, was taken. Now you had the holy things. You had the Ark of the Covenant, you had the altars, you had all of this stuff placed smack dab in the middle still of them. But look at it, why Moses tells us why. Now that's symbolic in part, but it's also very practical. Because when they got there, you were not going to set the holy things on the ground and wait for the tabernacle to be set up. The tabernacle would be already set up by the time they arrived, and all you had to do, all those things they're carrying on the poles, remember, never on a what? Never on a cart. Thing David forgot. They could just be brought right into their place and set down. So, remember, the Kohathites, it was amazing, like they had what I would consider a very prestigious job, a very dangerous job apparently as well, but they also had a pretty easy job. They didn't have to pack it up because they weren't priests. They couldn't go in there. The sons of Aaron had to pack it up. All they had to do once it was all packed up, show up, put the stakes in between, lift it, and walk. That was their whole job. And then they show up, they put it down, take the poles out, and leave. So they were truly just the moving company. And now we get the next group coming. The standard of the camp of the children of Ephraim set out according to their armies, and over their army was Eliashim the son of Ammihud, and over the army of the tribe of Manasseh was Gamaliel the son of Pedahzur. Over the army of the tribe of the children of Benjamin was Abidan the son of Gideoni. Then the standard of the camp of the children of Dan, the rear guard of all the camps, set out according to their armies. Over their army was Ahiezer the son of Ammishaddai. Over the army of the tribe of the children of Asher was Pagiel the son of Ochran. And over the army of the tribe of the children of Naphtali was Ahira the son of Enan. Thus was the order of the march of the children of Israel according to the armies when they began their journey. So, one thing we'll see right off the bat. The law has come, everything's been put in place, it's time to make this happen, this is the real deal. They move, and guess what? They got it right. Good job, guys. They did it right. It went smoothly. And they show up, and as they're on this first journey towards the promised land, from receiving the law and all their marching orders, it says, Now Moses said to Hobab, the son of Ruel, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law, We are setting out for the place of which the Lord said, I will give it to you. Come with us, and we will treat you well, for the Lord has promised good things to Israel. Then he said to him, I will not go, but I will depart to my own land, to my own relatives. And Moses said, Please do not leave, insomuch as you know how we are to camp in the wilderness, and you can be our eyes. And it shall be if you go with us, indeed it shall be, that whatever good the Lord will do to us, the same we will do to you. So they departed from the mountains of the Lord on a journey of 3 days. And the ark of the covenant of the Lord went before them for the 3 days' journey to search out a resting place for them. And the cloud of the Lord was above them by day when they went out from the camp. And so it was whenever the ark set out that Moses said, Rise up, O Lord, let your enemies be scattered, and let those who hate you flee before you. And when it rested, he said, Return, O Lord, to the many thousands of Israel. So it's interesting what Moses would say. Moses would actually say like a benediction each time here. And notice when they set out, the ark sets out, Moses says, Rise up, O Lord, let your enemies be scattered, and let those who hate you flee before you. Now, why do you think Moses would do that? So interactive part. Why would Moses do that? What is the point? Yeah.
Maybe to remind them of the sovereignty of God. And it's like anything else. If you say that, literally say it out loud, it's a reminder to the whole Israelite camp that God is going to take care of any situation that comes up.
Absolutely. So one of the things that happens is it's a reminder. Yeah.
If you can't visualize it, you can't do it.
Right, right. So there's a very important part of these reminders, that picture of what's happening for the people. So they know what's happening as they see that cloud or fire, depending on when they're moving, go forward. They're seeing, and Moses is basically saying, this is rising up, the enemies will be scattered, and those who hate the Lord will flee before them. And then, when it rested, when everything came to stop, return, O Lord, to the many thousands of Israel. So there is also the reminder of the Lord is now back dwelling in their midst at a place of rest. It's interesting because throughout Scripture, think about it, whether we're talking the Psalms, whether we're talking, there's just imagery throughout all the Bible that really seems to talk about either the Lord being in the midst of its people or the Lord going out before his people, right? And this is what is really amazing. In the New Testament, what do we see with Jesus? What is Jesus doing? What do we see him referred to, particularly in the book of Revelation, amongst the church?
A doctor.
Well, he does heal, and he does do that. But we see him dwelling, walking in the midst of, right, the lampstands. He is in our midst. The reason is we have already entered the promise. There is no more traveling to be done. Oh, yes, we long for the new heavens, the new earth. We long for the final heavenly place of full, realized resurrection and rest. But from the work to be done here, we've got nowhere else to go. Does he sanctify us? Of course he does. Does he mold us? Does he shape us? Does he heal the wounds? Does he strengthen things that are weak in us? Does he transform us? Yes, he does. But he is in our midst now. With the children of Israel, they had a long way to go still. They were not in the promised land. There is so much of understanding this. If you do not understand what's happening here, it's very difficult to understand the book of Hebrews. Because this is constantly referenced in the book of Hebrews, that the Lord was taking them to a place of rest, to a promised land, but not all of them made it. In fact, how many of them made it? 2. 2 of the many thousands referenced here ended up making it. Joshua and Caleb. All the rest die in the wilderness still. Yeah.
Were those not the 2 spies?
They were. Those were the 2 spies that came back with faith, with a good report, saying, let's go take the land. Well, everyone else was afraid. And we'll get to that in a couple weeks here. We're going to be right on there. So, let's see. So we have this benediction with it. And also, I would say it's a prayer as well, right? Prayer is vastly important. In my office, one of the quotes I have up in it, one of the C.S. Lewis quotes I have says, I do not pray because it changes God. I pray because it changes me. Right? The Lord's Prayer, or as Ray likes to say, the disciples' prayer, really. When that was prayed, I mean, let's think about it. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Does my prayer make it so that his will be done? No, I don't think any of us think that. Yet Jesus told us to pray that. Why? That's our reminder. That's what helps encourage us. That's what helps strengthens us. Lord, your will be done as it is in heaven, here on earth also. Give us this day our daily bread. How many of you have forgotten or not prayed that on any given morning this past week? Right? I didn't pray. Did God still give you your daily bread? Absolutely, he did. God doesn't need these prayers to act. There's no place we see that he refuses to act if we don't ask. Yet by partaking in prayer, by invoking God's name, it changes us. It strengthens us. It reminds us. I think we would be foolish for any of us to think, well, he only did it because I asked. Like that is the whole reason God did something good. No. We know that's not the case. And yet, do you think there are probably some mercies God gives us because we ask? Of course there are. It's a balance like everything else. We can't be so foolish to think that our asking is the reason the world goes round the sun and the sun comes up every morning. And if I forgot to pray for my food or for the sunrise or that the Lord keeps me when I sleep tonight, well, then it's all over because I didn't pray. Of course that's not the case. However, I think there are many things in our lives that we do not enter into, and like James says, things that we have not because we ask not. Well, how do we balance this? How do we find it? What do you guys think? Where's the balance? Well, I play with this microphone. Sorry, what was that? Hope, right? Where we hope for what he does, what we ask, okay? Prayer, yeah. Yeah. Yes, praying with determination, praying regularly. Yep, all of those things. Anybody else? The balance between this, what our prayers do and don't do. It's a little more difficult, right? Now, it's not fair. We're asking philosophical questions now. These are deep philosophical questions, but I think they're important. Because again, the Bible shows us both. There are many things in the scriptures like that. They show us both. We know there are times people, Jesus said, were healed because of their faith, correct? Yes. We also know there were people that did not have any ability to have faith in the moment, like Lazarus in the tomb, and nobody was asking for him to be raised again, and Jesus still raised him from the dead. So which is, it's both, right? God is not limited to it. So the way I tend to think about it is, let's just ask. Let's not be remiss. Let's make sure we ask.
I think no formulas.
Right.
Because, people would be writing books well, here's how you heal someone who's blind, and here's how you...
Correct. We humbly come before him as our good Father who loves us, who cares for us, the maker of the universe, and we put our petitions before him. If he grants them, then we humbly thank him for his goodness, his love, and that he showed that in those ways. If he does not grant it, then we thank him that in his goodness and his love, he has chosen that which is better for us, even though we cannot see that it is better for us. And when we get blessings and tremendous things happening that we didn't even ask for, guess what we do? The same exact thing. We thank him humbly.
I think it boils down to trust.
Yeah.
Trust him.
Absolutely. And I think that's our balance right there. Trust is a lot to do with our balance. It's trust and love. See, you can have trust without love, correct? Every single one of you sat down in those chairs because you trust they will not collapse when you sit on them. You do not love those chairs, though. That's why, how many of you thought about it when you sat down? None of you even bothered to think about sitting down and whether that would hold you. You had tremendous trust. You have no love. It's theoretically possible, though maybe a little more difficult, to think of a situation where you can love without much trust. Well, no, I guess that's possible. Think of our children. Some of us have kids or have had children you would not trust for the life of you with something dangerous in their hands. You know you can't let them out of your sight, but you love them. You love them a whole lot. Yep. Yeah. Right, that's a great point too. In matters of forgiveness, right? Trust may be broken. You may forgive out of the love you have for them, but it doesn't mean trust is instantly restored. With God, it's both. The love we have for him and our knowledge of the love he has for us drive us to him with every problem, with every need. And the trust allows us to go boldly. And when he says no, gratefully, willingly accept it as well. See, the person who only trusts but doesn't necessarily love may never pray in their life. They'll just walk around optimistically saying, well, I trust God's going to take care of it, so whatever. And they'll have no relationship with him, which, by the way, that's a very bad place to be. And there are those that profess a love for God and maybe truly have one, but have very little trust. And their life is filled with fears and doubts and trying to weave their way. A great example of that might be a guy like Jacob in the Bible. That he seemed to serve the Lord, he seemed to love the Lord, but boy, he did not seem to trust the Lord to take care of his problems and get what he wanted, because he was constantly trying to do it himself. Right? So I think that therein lies our balance. It's trust and love in proper measure, complete measure combined. Yeah, John.
Yeah, and I think that balance there, the analogy of a father and a child, or a parent and a child, really drives that home as well. You know, he teaches us to pray our Father, right? And so those who have been parents, you know, I've never been a child, but it's that same thing. You still want your children to come to you. You're going to, even imperfectly as we are as humans, desiring to do what's best for your children, but sometimes they'll come to you and petition you for something that you weren't, you know, and they can persuade you, but it still doesn't change that you're always trying to do what's best for them.
Right.
Right? So like that balance you can see in that analogy between a father and a child, and the child in either instance, when you say yes or no, has to trust that you have, you know, their best interest in heart, and, you know, thank you either way for the blessing or the, you know, the protection.
Right. And I think anybody who's been a parent and has had a child distrust them, you know how that hurts. Right? When they distrust you. And I'm not talking about like a 3-year-old who can't wrap their head around why you're making them take a nap. You know, but we're talking when you really hit that age where they know and they simply do not trust your love and wanting best.
You know, I think tangent to what you're saying, John, is he teaches them to say our Father. It's a little bit like, it's not, we don't say my Father, it's not my Father, it's all of our Father, you know? And it kind of goes along with that idea of, you know, the example you just gave where, yeah, you know, sometimes we can be persuading God and he listens to us and then he does what has to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. So the one other thing that I will mention in there just before we move on to chapter 11 here is the whole thing with Hobab. Hobab is Moses' brother-in-law, okay? It's interesting. So why is this little thing mentioned? Right? Because, okay, you say you went to your brother-in-law and said, hey, we're about to go. You've been with us this whole time here. Can you stay with us as we journey into the promised land? Hobab's like, nah, it's time for me to go home. I'm going to go home. I'll be with my family again. But Moses had said, stay with us. We'll treat you really well. You'll have all the blessings of the land, and we need your help. And he says, no. But the second time he appeals to it, it's interesting because what he says the second time is, listen, Hobab, I'm going to be blunt with you. We need you. You have skills in the wilderness that we do not have. They were a slave people. They ate what they were given, what they were allowed to eat. They worked with what they were allowed to live. Hobab had grown up in the wilderness. He had grown up out there. He knew how to survive. He knew how to read the land. He knew how to guide in the land. Because though the Lord was guiding them by the pillar and the fire, there was still, think about a lot of details of daily life that still needed to be done. Think about how much still needed to be navigated. People would have to still, think about it. People didn't just set up their tents, tear them down, walk, set up their tents, and sit there in their tent the whole time. They were doing things, right? You had supplies that still had to be gathered. You had flocks that had to be taken out and watered and shepherded and all of these things. And Hobab knew about the land and how to do that. So Moses says, no, listen, we really need you. And he comes after that. So why is it said? Why is that even mentioned? Well, likely because this is where the Kenites come from. These people that are of Moses' in-laws that ended up living with the children of Israel. So when this is all being put together, well, who are these people living over here that aren't related to us? They're not Israelites. How did they get attached to us? Well, it's recorded now how they became attached to the people. So it always be remembered that they attached themselves to the people originally through the means of helping the people. And that's something that you always want to be grateful to those who help you. And so it's recorded. All right, now verse 11. Chapter 11, verse 1. So we had a good start. They hit the road, they do it all in the right way, and they get into this good pattern and this good way of doing things. It says, now when the people complained. Oh, here we go. This is going to start it all. Now when the people complained, it displeased the Lord. For the Lord heard it, and his anger was aroused. So fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed some in the outskirts of the camp. Then the people cried out to Moses, and when Moses prayed to the Lord, the fire was quenched. So he called the name of the place Taberah, because the fire of the Lord had burned among them. Now the mixed multitude who were among them yielded to intense craving. So the children of Israel also wept again and said, who will give us meat to eat? We remember the fish which we ate freely in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now our whole being is dried up, and there is nothing at all except this manna before our eyes. Right. Now the manna was like coriander seed, and its color was like bdellium. And the people went out about and gathered it, ground it to millstone or bread in the mortar, cooked it in pans and made cakes of it. And its taste was like the taste of a pastry prepared with oil. And when the dew fell on the camp at night, the manna fell on it. So let's just pause there. God had been providing manna for food because they didn't have a food source for that many people, up to possibly 2 million people at the time. And how we get that number, by the way, is pretty straightforward. You have 600,000 people, we're told, who could march, men who could march. If you go with, let's say, there's got to be at least one female to male, even if they're not all married exactly and stuff like that. But even if you match that up, now you're up to 1.2 million. And if you have, let's say, 500,000 couples that each have 2 kids, right now we're close to that 2 million mark, okay? So that's why it's thought 2 million is probably the ballpark. Could be more easily, could be a little less, who knows? But we're in that ballpark. But notice what happens first. First, we're told that, and we're not giving a lot of detail, people complained. That's all it tells us. The people complained, and it displeased the Lord, for the Lord heard it. And his anger was aroused, so the fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed some in the outskirts of the camp. And then the people cry out to Moses. Moses prays to the Lord. The fire is quenched. All right, that was essentially the warning shot. The people, listen, who's shocked? People complained. We're not shocked, are we? Right. All you have to do today is turn on any cable-based news. It's crazy, isn't it, that no longer is actually news. It's literally just complaint about news. That's literally all it is. They may tell you, you might have on something like Fox or CNN or NBC, you might have an hour of the day actually devoted to just reporting some news. But there's always somebody with opinion on it. There's always someone telling you what the politicians are doing wrong and how terrible they are and how stupid they are and the disaster it's going to lead to. We sell complaining. And why? Why do they do it? Because it's what actually sells. Because it's what people long for. It's what people want. People want to feed the complaint. Yeah.
And the news is called if it bleeds, it leads.
Right. If it bleeds, it leads. Yep. Anything that's going to get a massive reaction. But God is displeased with them for their complaining. Now, why would God be displeased with their complaining? I know it seems like it should be an obvious answer, but we're going to explore that for a minute. Why is God displeased with their complaining? Yeah, right, because everything he has done for them. And right, we're not talking about like someone who's 80 years old looking back and thinking of 5 or 6 miraculous events that have happened over their 80 years of their life. We're talking about a lot of miraculous events that have happened over a very, very short consolidated period of their life. We have 10 plagues, we have fire and pillar of cloud, we have the Red Sea parting, we have the manna falling, we have water coming out of rocks, we have all sorts of crazy stuff happening. And yet, complaint. And it's interesting because now when we get to the manna, what are they complaining about? Right. They're complaining. Notice, I think it's very interesting what Moses says in verse 4. The mixed multitude who were among them yielded to intense craving. You might as well, New Testament terms, just say the lust of the flesh. Yeah.
Addiction.
Right, addiction, really. Yeah. They got used to a certain lifestyle in Egypt. And it was all exciting when it was time to leave. It was all exciting watching the miracles happen. But then everything settles down as it always does, right? They had had the mountain, the fire, the thunderings, the law given. They had had the incident of the golden calf. They have all this stuff happening. And life settles down. It's time to go. It's time to hit our normal. It's time to get into our everyday routines of what God wants us doing. And what happens? I miss the good old days. Man, remember the days when? And again, do we have to look much further in American culture to find that? Oh, I remember back in my day, this would have never happened. No. Other bad things happened instead. Maybe not that one, maybe you're right, but there are plenty of other terrible things that happened. There have always been bad and terrible things that happened. The good old days have never been the good old days. It's just we have a tendency to forget the bad and how bad it has been. So the people start complaining because they want meat. And listen, I can't blame them for wanting meat. I mean, if you haven't tasted meat for a while, I mean, how many of you like meat? Okay, good. I like meat. I think we all like meat. Many of us like meat. When you haven't had meat for a while, you kind of get a craving for it. So where did they go wrong? Why is this so wrong? I think it's easy to crave something you haven't had in a while. So what went wrong here? That's okay.
Just when you said they love meat and they crave it, they became vegetarian.
Right, that was the problem. They became vegetarians. No,
Fish in the desert smells.
right. Well, that's very true too. They're not getting fish out there. The only way to get their fish is to go back to Egypt, for one. But think about this for a second. What does God want us to do? Like, what is it? That the people should have just buried their desire for meat? Just shut up about it? Harper. They did have cows. Yeah. Right? It's quite possible they could have eaten of their flocks. But they didn't slaughter their flocks. Right, right. You see, that's one of the things we can so easily miss. The problem isn't that they like meat and would like to have some again. The question is, could they have slaughtered their own? Was this a matter of not wanting to? Had their flocks started to get smaller because of the sacrificial system that had started up, perhaps? That's one of the thoughts, that this could have been complaining because they had to give enough of their meat over to the sacrificial system. They had eaten meat, by the way, if they had sacrificed, because they were to share in that, right? Unless it was the one or two offerings that everything went to the Lord. All the rest were share. The best portion, the fatty portion, went to the Lord, and then they ate. So it's not like they had no meat. But when you lack something you want, we don't complain, we ask. But the heart of the people was to complain. And my guess is, too, and this is, I can't say thus saith the Lord, he starts talking about the mixed multitude who were among them, yielded to the intense craving. This may also have had to do with the dietary laws, that they wanted certain meats that they were not allowed to have anymore, is a distinct possibility in this, that they wanted something forbidden to them now. So, they whine, they complain, and they go so far as to long for the days of Egypt, the days of their slavery. And we have to be very, very, very careful of that. Because for us, Egypt is essentially our pre-saved days. For those especially for those who had that salvation experience later in life. Egypt is the world. And there are times that it's like, wow, this looks so tempting to go back to, and they are forgetting that they were slaves, groaning under their burdens, crying out to the Lord to deliver them. And of course, for those of us who were raised in the church, and I know there's a handful of us out here today who were, that's the danger of the world too, is we have heard of its bondage. We may not have lived in its bondage. And we may be tempted to go experience the world. But rest assured, the world hasn't changed. It's interesting when we think about it, right? When we think about what does it say of the Lord, he was the same, oh thank you, same yesterday, today, and forever. You can say the same thing about the world. Once the fall happened, it hasn't changed. It is a snare. It enslaves us. It is the very nature of it. And for those of us, for those of you who found that later in life, who escaped the world, how bad is it to go back to it? Because what you have done, this is what the book of Hebrews talks about. When you do that, you come, you taste, you see, you experience the freedom, the goodness of the Lord, and then what you say is, nah, not for me. I like this better.
How would you know if you liked it better?
Well, I don't. But somebody who got saved later in life, who like Pastor Ray, who lived in the world. If he were to go back to the world, that is essentially what he's saying. No, I don't want the thing of God. I want that. And for those who have been raised in Christ, who go to the world, they are guilty of ignoring every warning they have ever heard. And to go back, in some ways, listen, in some ways I understand the process of how it happens. I understand the process of someone saying, this is all I've ever known, and I've got some troubles in this. Let me go check something else out. I do understand that thought process. But we also have to understand why that's so heart-wrenching for everybody who watches that happen, because they know what will happen out there. What is it, right? For any of us, whether we have been saved early in life or late in life, what do we honestly hope to find in the world? Do you hope to find salvation? No, literally, it's never offered it, right? When have any of you, in your experience with the world, television, movies, commercials, has any of the world ever actually offered salvation? No, it doesn't even pretend to. It always allures to the lust of the flesh. You will have a good time. You can have experiences that you are being kept from because God knows. God knows if you experience this, you're going to really like it. And it sounds a whole lot like the lie in the garden. Because God knows if you eat of this fruit, you'll become like him. You will know things he knows and doesn't want you to know. See, ultimately, when we go back to the world, it's because what we're rejecting is the belief that he wants what's best for us. It's pointless to believe in a God that doesn't know what's best for us, right? Like, what kind of God would that be? So either God, if he is who he says he is, knows what's best for us, and to go away from that is to reject that for a while, or sometimes it isn't even all that deep. It is nothing more than the mixed multitude yielding to an intense craving. But sin always, always, always leads to death. Death of something. And we have to be careful of that, and we'll see what it leads to here. So verse 10, then Moses heard the people weeping throughout their families, everyone at the door of his tent, and the anger of the Lord was greatly aroused, and Moses was also displeased. Okay, so this is great. Now we're going to see one of the great arguments in the Bible, right here, between Moses and God. Moses decides he's going to get in the first word. Moses says to the Lord, "Why have you afflicted your servant? Why have I not found favor in your sight that you have laid the burden of all these people on me? Did I conceive all the people? Did I beget them, that you should say to me, carry them in your bosom as a guardian carries a nursing child to the land which you swore to their fathers? Where am I to get meat to give to all these people? For they weep all over me, saying, 'Give us meat that we may eat.' I'm not able to bear all these people alone, because the burden is too heavy for me. If you treat me like this, please kill me here and now, if I have found favor in your sight, and do not let me see my wretchedness." So we can add Moses to the long list of servants of God who made the "kill me now" statement to the Lord. There were lots of them, by the way. So if you ever just feel like, "Lord, I just wish you'd let me die. Take me home now," you're in good company. People who serve the Lord in this fallen world find hardship. Plain and simple. And, if we're going to be honest, he didn't say anything less. He told us that would happen. So it's not like he snuck that in the fine print. But Moses, Moses is great like this in some ways. But I look at him and I'm like, wow, Moses, this is bold. This is bold. Like, you take your problem and you're basically like, where am I going to find food to feed all these people? Lord, if this is how you're going to treat me, you're going to make me responsible for caring for these people's every need? Now, what is very interesting, and I would actually wonder if it ever occurred to Moses, can you show me where he actually asked you to do that? Can you find one place in all of this account that the Lord asked Moses to care for every need of the people and to provide every need of the people? So Moses is doing something that I cannot even condemn him for because I am so guilty of myself. In fact, wasn't it just, when did we come back from Johnny and Friends? 2 weeks ago? 1 week? 2 weeks? 2 weeks ago. Sunday prayer. I get to confess to you guys my struggle with trying to fix things when God had not asked me to. And the amount of stress that was causing in my life and how it had robbed me of joy. And this is exactly what's happened to Moses. Moses is not at this point just going, Lord, I'm with you on this. I'm really annoyed by this, but I got to bring it to you. They want meat. What are we going to do? He doesn't do that. He takes it upon himself. His prayer is no longer really aimed at, Lord, can we fix this problem? His prayer is aimed at, God, why did you do this to me? What did I ever do to you? Well, the Lord is so good. See, if I was the Lord, then I'd be so grateful I'm not. I think I would have been tempted to be angry with Moses for that response. But the Lord instead says to Moses, gather to me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the elders of the people and officers over them, and bring them to the tabernacle of meeting that they may stand there with you. Then I will come down and talk with you there, and I will take the spirit that is upon you and will put the same upon them, and they shall bear the burden of the people with you, that you may not bear it yourself alone. Then you shall say to the people, consecrate yourselves for tomorrow that you shall eat meat, for you have wept in the hearing of the Lord, saying, who will give us meat to eat? For it was well with us in Egypt. Oh, the Lord didn't miss that detail of their complaint, right? For it was well with us in Egypt. Therefore the Lord will give you meat, and you shall eat meat. You shall eat not 1 day, nor 2 days, nor 5 days, nor 10 days, nor 20 days, but for a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils and becomes loathsome to you, because you have despised the Lord who is among you, and have wept before him, saying, why did we ever come up out of Egypt? So now we see why the Lord was angry. The Lord was not angry simply because they asked for meat. The Lord was angry because they wanted to go back to Egypt. They did not want what he wanted for them. And I will tell you, flat out, when we deal with people in this world, people who walk into the church, how do you know who's going to stick around and follow after the Lord and be sanctified and bear good fruit? Those who want what the Lord has to offer. It's just that simple. Those who do not want what the Lord has to offer will fall by the wayside. They will either be the seed that gets plucked up by the birds, they will be the seed that gets choked out by the rocks and the weeds, or they will be in the shallow soil, and they'll wither up in the heat of the sun. That's what's going to happen. And then you won't see them anymore, because they wanted something else. And we all know that pull, don't we? We have all felt that pull of wanting something other than what the Lord has for us. And that's why one of God's greatest graces that he can give us comes in the form of either an anchor, someone or something we're attached to that simply won't let us leave, or a fence put around us in our situations where the Lord's like, I know you want out, but I'm not letting you go out. Sometimes those are the greatest mercies God gives us. We will fight against them. We will pull against them. We will yank against them. We may want to tear them down tooth and nail. But they are mercies from God. And they are going to get their fill. Now it's interesting because you can see humanity here and how nothing has changed for humanity either. Because basically what Moses is figuring out and what the Lord is showing him, guess what, Moses? It's not good for a man to be alone. He was doing it by himself or thought he was. The Lord said, fine, you know what? You're right. I'm not going to have you carry this burden alone. Get 70 elders with you of the people. We'll pour my spirit upon them, and they're going to carry it with you. This is almost exactly what happens to Elijah. When Elijah says, I'm all alone. Jezebel's trying to kill me. Woe is me, Lord. He also says, Lord, why don't you just kill me now? Don't let Jezebel kill me. You do it. And what did the Lord say to him on the mountain? First of all, you're not alone. I've got 7,000. But you know what? Fine. Let's go get your understudy ready. Go find the man Elisha. He doesn't name him by name right there, but go find him. And take him along with you. So you don't do it alone anymore. God is merciful to Moses in this. Now, it's also interesting, isn't it, that Moses says, where am I to get meat for all these people? I think the disciples asked the Lord a question like that at one point too, didn't they? The Lord says, go ahead, feed them. Where am I getting food for all 5,000 people? Well, what do you have on hand? We got a couple loaves and some fish. All right, bring it. Let me show you how this is done. See, nothing new under the sun. Nothing new. All right, now moving on here. And Moses said, the people whom I am among are 600,000 men on foot, yet you have said to me, I will give them meat that they may eat for a whole month. Shall the flocks and herds be slaughtered for them to provide enough for them? There you go, Harper. There's the answer to your question. Moses is asking. Or shall all the fish of the sea be gathered together for them to provide enough for them? Okay, this is the one where this is starting to sound like burning bush territory again, where the Lord's like, listen, gather them together. You're not going to do this alone. And Moses is like, you're ignoring my question. Where you want them to help me get food? Where are we getting the food? Is what he's saying to the Lord. Are we to kill off all the herds? Are we to kill off all the flocks? Are we going to get all the fish out of the sea? And the Lord said to Moses, has the Lord's arm been shortened? Now you shall see whether what I say will happen to you or not. I'll be honest, that's a line of questioning I never want to have the Lord talk to me that way. I don't think I want to get to the point where I've provoked the Lord into saying, okay, you doubt? Now let's see whether or not I can do it. So Moses went out, told the people the words of the Lord. So all the people know what the Lord said. He gathered 70 men of the elders of the people, placed them around the tabernacle. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and spoke to him, and took the spirit that was upon him and placed the same upon the 70 elders. And it happened when the Spirit rested upon them that they prophesied, although they never did so again. Interesting. This is like a singular Pentecost moment almost. Singularly, 70 men, the Lord pours the Holy Spirit upon, and they prophesied, though we are told it never happened to them again. This was not a continual filling for like a gift like prophecy. They only prophesied once. But this is a very interesting story. But 2 men remained in the camp. The name of one was Eldad, the name of the other was Medad. And the Spirit rested upon them. Now they were among those listed, but had not gone out to the tabernacle. Yet they prophesied in the camp. And the young man ran and told Moses and said, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. So Joshua the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, one of his choice men, answered and said, Moses, my Lord, forbid them. Then Moses said to him, are you zealous for my sake? Oh, that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would put his Spirit upon them. And Moses returned to the camp, he and the elders of Israel. Now, you understand Joshua's point, right? These guys didn't follow the rules. They were supposed to come. 68 of the 70 came. These two did not, and they get the same privilege of the Spirit of God falling about them. Tell them to be quiet. Tell them they don't deserve it. Tell them they can't have it. And Moses says, no, you don't understand. Are you zealous for my sake? In other words, listen, this has nothing to do with me, you, anybody else. This is what the Lord does. Let the Lord do his work. This reminds me of another thing. Isn't it amazing how much of this parallels Jesus and his disciples? Because remember, some guys were doing some things in Jesus' name, but weren't of them. And what did they say? Forbid them. Don't let them do it. And what did Jesus say? If they're not against me, they're for me. But it's interesting because another point he says the opposite. If you're not for me, you're against me. Okay, which one is? Either you're for them or you're against them is basically the point. So, now this last little section. Now a wind went out from the Lord, and it brought quail from the sea and left them fluttering near the camp. About a day's journey on this side and about a day's journey on the other side, all around the camp, and about 2 cubits above the surface of the ground. And the people stayed up all day and all night and all the next day and gathered the quail. He who gathered the least gathered 10 homers, and they spread them out for themselves all around the camp. But while the meat was still between their teeth, before it was chewed, the wrath of the Lord was aroused against the people, and the Lord struck the people with a very great plague. So he called the name of that place Kibroth Hattaavah, because there they buried people who had yielded to the craving. From Kibroth Hattaavah, the people moved to Hazeroth and camped at Hazeroth. Now, I need to read one more thing to you guys. Oh, I moved my marker. Of course I did. Let me just find it really quick. It's in Corinthians. 1 Corinthians 10:10. Because we're going to now do our so what. Yes, what can we learn? 1 Corinthians chapter 10. Let's just start in verse 6. You know what? No, let's start in verse 1. Moreover, brethren, I don't want you to be unaware that all our fathers were under the cloud. All passed through the sea. All were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. All ate the same spiritual food, manna, right? All drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ, the water that came of the rock he's referring to. But with most of them, God was not well pleased, for their bodies were scattered in the wilderness. Now these things became our examples, to the intent that we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. And do not become idolaters, as were some of them. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. So this is with the golden calf. Nor let us commit sexual immorality, as some of them did. And in one day 23,000 fell. Nor let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed by serpents. Nor complain, this is what we just read about, as some of them also complained, and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now all these things happened to them as examples, and they were written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the ages has come. Therefore, let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. No temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will also make a way of escape, that you may be able to bear it. Guys, Paul is clear. Why do we read what we read in Exodus and Leviticus and Deuteronomy and Numbers? ignorance cannot be an excuse for us. Plain and simple. And that's like kind of going back to previously what we said. For those of us sitting here, and I can look through, I know like Garrett and Danielle and myself and Harper and a few others in here perhaps who grew up in the Lord. Glenn, you grew up in the Lord.
Yeah, at 5 years old.
We do not have an excuse to go test the world because we have been shown what happens to those who do. So when things come upon us, when we are in the world, we will be without excuse because we should have known. Not even just based on our own cloud of witnesses physically around us who warn us, but just from the scriptures alone telling us. So, the admonition tonight, before we have John come back up and he make his way up, for all of us, is let us all take heed, lest we fall. And remember, when temptation threatens to overtake us, it doesn't matter what that temptation is. It doesn't matter how strongly it comes on. It doesn't matter if it's to say a biting word. It doesn't matter if it's into areas of sexual temptation, drugs, alcohol, any of it. There is a way out. God has promised to make a way out for us because he loves us enough that he does not want to see us destroyed by sin. So, Father, thank you that you give us these examples, that you were faithful to write them down. Thank you that no blushes are spared. There is no speaking well of the dead, in essence. You're just honest because you don't want any of us falling into the same traps. So strengthen us, Lord. Help us do the faithful things first. Lord, think of the Israelites leaving as they should. Help us each day just to simply follow our marching orders faithfully. And when the temptations of life, the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, the pride of life threatens to come upon us, may we recognize the way of escape and take it swiftly.